As of the recording of this video, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is exactly 1 month away. However, that's not stopping them from releasing some brand new news on the game. So for fans who cannot wait a single second longer, Christmas comes today. So please go ahead and hit that subscribe button because we got some really interesting Final Fantasy VII Rebirth details. I know everyone's kind of saying that right now we know too much about the game. I actually kind of disagree. We really don't know that much at all. We haven't seen too much of the side content, the world, don't know how the game opens. There's still a lot of mysteries left, so they haven't quite spoiled everything yet. The first major details though for today come from the London event that happened over the weekend, with Audrey transcribing most of the major details for us. The first major detail here is really interesting. Gongaga will be an integral part of the story. Now this is something that I'm surprised I haven't seen more people talking about. Gongaga is Zach's hometown, and as such, it is most likely that there is going to be some major event, something happening with Zach in Gongaga. Now, of course, as everyone knows who played Final Fantasy VII Remake and has been keeping up with this game, Zach is alive in a way. It seems that he's not alive in the Beagle timeline with our current characters, but he is alive in the Terrierverse, sometimes described as another world, another timeline. Some people theorize that this is actually in the live stream, but in either case, Zach is alive in some capacity. Now, it has been teased in the Final Fantasy VII Remake intermission DLC that Aerith is able to sort of sense the presence of this other universe, timeline, world, whatever you want to call it. However, they've yet to directly interact. And Gongaga seems like an ideal place story-wise for that to happen. I think this is where Aerith might sense Zach's presence. Something major with Zach is going to happen. And they say it right here, it's an integral part of the story. There's going to be a lot of mystery there. The second bullet point, for those wondering if Fort Condor will be returning, it indeed will be. The actual Fort Condor will be in the game, and not just a mini game like the intermission DLC. I really loved Fort Condor in the intermission DLC, so this is going to be really awesome to see. I'm really looking forward to what they do here. As they've said before, they don't plan on deleting anything from the original, so everything is going to be there in some capacity. Junon will contain lavish scenes. Cloud will take on the role of ranking officer who needs to build his own parade. You can customize who will be in your parade. And this next bullet point is something super major for me. It addresses a massive criticism I had of the first Final Fantasy VII Remake. Side quest will be available at any time and will not be locked away after progressing to a certain point in the story. Thank God. One of the things that I did not like about the first game was that it felt like you were coerced into doing the side content right then and there, because you wouldn't be able to go back and do any of the game's side content until you did New Game Plus. That means you either did the side content or you were locked out of it for your entire playthrough. And you got some really good materia and other equipment and bonus scenes from doing that side content. So it was something that you really didn't want to miss. However, it's also the case that a lot of that side content simply was not as interesting as the main story. And the way the game would force you into kind of doing it would ultimately pad out the pacing a lot, making your playthrough kind of feel like it came to a crawl. Side content in games is usually at its best when you're going at your own pace, doing things as you like to, and then progressing with the main story as you like to. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is going to allow you to choose how you want to tackle all of this content, and that makes it much better than the first game in my opinion. This next bullet point is also a huge bit of news. Red 13 will change his personality after you get to Cosmo Canyon. So he will have dialogue as Nanaki and Red 13, allowing you to go back and chapter select to see different responses too, if you miss some of his side quests before the change. This is super incredible. You know, doing a new game of Final Fantasy VII OG, there are so many people out there, whenever they get Red 13 in their party, they'll manually go in there and rename him Nanaki. And the reason is because after that pivotal moment in Cosmo Canyon, feels kind of weird for everyone to keep referring to him as Red 13. Well, no longer is that going to be the case, because after it happens, he will automatically become Nanaki. You'll refer to him as Nanaki. They even recorded 2 sets of dialogue to account for that. How incredible is that? It is a small detail that definitely required a lot of work because they had to re-record a ton of dialogue. It's a super small detail, but it's going to make this game shine that much brighter to me. Because usually what takes a great game to an exceptional game is in the small details like this. Then we have the game's playtime. Total gameplay is 100 hours if you want to 100% the game with all side quests and mini games. Main story takes about 40 hours to complete, so that means that the main story will be about the length of Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 1 with side quest included, which is actually a pretty massive game just for the main story to be that long. And then after that, you have 60 hours worth of side content, which is insane. The only way you were getting that from the first game is if you played through all the content on your first playthrough, and then you played it again on hard mode and did all the content again. And even then, that's like 70-ish hours. So for this game to be 100 hours to see and do everything, that is completely bonkers. And that's one playthrough. Rebirth is going to be a significantly bigger game than Remake. Now, there is a couple of other bits of information that I wanted to cover here that I think is really fascinating. This tweet here has been translated by Genki at GenkiJPN, and it says Hamaguchi said they decided to use Unreal Engine 4 from the start for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. He said that Unreal Engine 5 is attractive, there are still parts of the engine that are still being developed. So instead of waiting for functions they needed, they decided to develop the functions in-house and use Unreal Engine 4 to get the game into players' hands faster, and with a good output. He said there were different opinions in the team, but he felt that was a point that he could not waver on for Rebirth. Now, if I recall correctly, there was a certain Night Sky individual who made a video on this exact topic, and it would seem that he predicted they would use Unreal Engine 4 instead of 5 for this reason. Everyone really wants to see Unreal Engine 5 tech running in games, but it is going to be quite a while, and most of the games that are currently in development pipeline are using Unreal Engine 4. And while yes, it is relatively easy to port your Unreal Engine 4 game to Unreal Engine 5, you don't want to do that too late in development. Meaning that yes, for games that are super early in development like Kingdom Hearts 4, that are probably not coming out until like 2027, Kingdom Hearts fam, don't kill me for it, but that's probably the truth. For games at that point in development, it's totally fine to convert them to Unreal Engine 5. But for Final Fantasy VII, where they already had so much groundwork laid on Unreal Engine 4, and they had already heavily customized Unreal Engine 4 to their liking, meaning that if they were to start over on Unreal Engine 5, all of their in-house work would have to be readjusted as well, which would take a lot of time. This would add months to development. So as I had been saying from the start, I think that Unreal Engine 5 for this game was kind of unrealistic of an expectation. It's not impossible for Part 3 to switch to Unreal Engine 5, but I also kind of think that Part 3 doing that would be somewhat of a waste as well. Just use Unreal Engine 4. Any feature that you have in Unreal Engine 5, really, you can implement it back in the 4. This is all open source, none of it's a mystery. Some qualified senior devs should be able to figure it out. It's not a big problem. So again, I think this is a smart move by Hamaguchi. It allows the game to get out faster. It allows them to have less issues. Again, as he mentioned, there's parts of Unreal Engine 5 that aren't quite finished yet. This is a brand new engine, so again, sticking with Unreal Engine 4. I know some people are disappointed, engine nerds, or not actually engine nerds, people who think they understand game engines, but they really just like to have discourse about them. But trust me, anyone who understands game development would understand this decision and probably think that it's a pretty good one to make. Kitase wanted to change the designs of the Maka reactors for Final Fantasy VII Remake. Kitase was open to making drastic changes to FF7R, said it was okay to change the Mako reactor design. Hamaguchi said he had too much respect for the series and couldn't do it. That's probably a good call on Hamaguchi's part, because even beyond the Mako reactors being so iconic as they are, the problem is that you have the meta story that's happening in Final Fantasy VII Remake, right? With the arbiters and the changing of destiny and timelines. That would make the meta story a lot more confusing. People would assume that the Whispers changed the Mako reactors. Hell, people already assume that the Whispers changed the Buster Sword. That's why there's no longer the gold hilt from Crisis Core. But it just goes to show that a lot of people say that, oh, Tetsuya Nomura wanted to do all the changes in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. The truth is that every single one of these developers contributed some change to the current story. For example, Hamaguchi was the one who suggested that they should have a Sephiroth boss fight at the end of the game. Each and every one of these devs have contributed something in terms of the changes and the things that have stayed the same. So I think rather than trying to point and blame, oh, this person changed that or that person changed this, I think the better way to look at it is that this is what Creative Business Unit 1 has decided that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth should be, and what the entire remake trilogy should be as far as the direction goes. After all, they all signed off on the ideas, and they all seem to have agreed to them, so this is what they've come to. This is also a really incredible development fact too. Toriyama says the content in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is so rich that it could have been 3 discs. He says 2 discs may seem heavy, but in fact, they had to do their best to cram the content on the 2 discs. Otherwise, it may have needed to be a 3 disc package. That is pretty insane. Now, a lot of this is the fact that there are multiple language, they have FMVs that are also in multiple languages and are probably in 4K 60, not to mention they also have this massive open world. So again, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is going to be a huge game. This is going to be a massive game. I cannot wait. We are literally 1 month away, guys. Can you believe it? We are almost 2/3 the way through the Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy, and we still don't know if and when a demo is coming. There are still tons of mysteries, so please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Let me know your thoughts on today's update, and I'll see you all in the next video.